Welcome to Wonders and Miracles podcast, where we celebrate miraculous moments in everyday lives. I'm Liza Lawrence. I'm glad to have you join me as we celebrate wonders and miracles together. All right. Well, I am excited today for this Valentine's episode to have my friend Amy here to share her love story and journey with meeting her husband and the journey of getting married. It's quite an amazing story. Amy's from Utah and her husband, Yaqub Ali, is from India, and they met in India. And so I've heard there's adventures in this, and I haven't heard the whole story, so I get to go along with you. It was funny. I was reaching out to my sisters, asking them, do you know anyone who has a unique, interesting miracle love story? And my sister Emily said, I do, and sent me Amy's contact. And so I'm really actually excited to hear all the details of this and your journey. So Amy, go ahead and tell us, probably start where you met and why you were in India, and start there and then take us on your journey.
Okay, well, thanks so much for having me. It was 2005. I went to India with a group of friends. I had a friend I got my master's degree with. It was half Indian, and she was serving in the Peace Corps in Africa. And we decided, a group of us, to meet in India for Christmas. So we were over there for almost a month. And I know the exact day I met my husband. It was the day after Christmas. We had journeyed down to a little state on the Arabian Sea of India on the west coast called Goa. It's this little Portuguese fishing village that is kind of like the Bahamas of India. It's just very tropical. People go there for beach holidays. And so we went down there for a few days to celebrate during Christmas. And we were walking to the beach, and my friend Tamara, who I was there with, stopped to buy a beach towel or something. And my husband, he goes by Ali, was outside. His business was jewelry. So where he's from in India is the largest center for cutting and polishing gemstones in the world. So they cut rough stones, put it into gold, silver, etc. And then they have all these jewelry shops throughout India. And he had a jewelry shop in India. And so as I was waiting for my friend, he approached me and commented on the necklace I was wearing and said, "That's a lovely pendant you're wearing." And I said, "I don't want to buy jewelry."
Leave me alone.
He said, "Okay, I don't want to sell you jewelry, but how are you?" And we just started talking. And I said, "Hey, we're looking for a hotel." And he ended up helping us find a hotel. And he's like, "When you come back from the beach, stop so we can chat." I said, "Okay, if we have time, we will." So we went and spent the day at the beach. And as we're walking back, we're walking by his shop. He said, "Hey, you said you stop and talk to me." And he goes, "Can I buy you a cup of coffee?" And I said, "Oh, I don't drink coffee." He says, "Well, what about a cup of tea?" I said, "Oh, I don't drink tea." And he goes, "Why?" I said, "Oh, it's for religious reasons." He goes, "Do you drink water?" I said, "Sure." So he invited me into his jewelry shop. We had a nice little chat. He showed me some things. I got up to leave, and he goes, "I want to give you a gift." And he gave me a sterling silver ring.
Wow.
And just said, "It's been nice meeting you. Why don't you have dinner with me?" And I'm like, "Oh, we already have plans, but if you'd like to join me, you could come." He's like, "Well, I have to work for a couple more hours." He's like, "Text me your phone number." And at this time, cell phones weren't really a big deal, especially internationally. But we had one cell phone among us. And I said, "Well, text this guy where we're having dinner." And he didn't show up, which I didn't think much about. The next day, there's like 20 missed calls from this number, and it's Ali. And he's like, "You texted the wrong number on my business card. That's my brother's number." Anyway, that day he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, we're just going to the beach." So he kind of met us there. And that night he took me on a motorcycle ride all over the city and showed me all the sights. And we we went to dinner. And then the next day I left. That was my last day and go. I said, "See you later." And we exchanged information. I never really thought two things about it. And he called me every day. Every day. I'm like, who is this crazy guy from India calling me? Usually at 3:00 in the morning because of the time difference. And I finally had to say, "Dude, if you want to call me, you got to get the time straight." And we kind of got to know each other over the phone because he'd call me every day. And 6 months later, so we met the day after Christmas. And 6 months later in the summer, I'm a teacher, so I have summers off. I would go and teach English in China. So after I went and taught English in China for about 6 weeks, me and some friends decided to go meet Ollie in India again. And so we went and spent 3 weeks there and got to know each other even better. I went back to India one more time the next summer. And we decided that we were going, after these 2 years, that we were going to get married. So he came back with me to the States to visit and meet my parents. And we got engaged while we were here in Utah. He stayed about 5 months. And he went back home to get all of his affairs in order. And we weren't sure where we were going to get married or what that was going to look like yet. But he was married before. So he had children there and his jewelry business. And so we had a lot of decisions to make. And he had come to the United States on a tourist visa, which is a multi-entry visa. He could come for 5 years, as many times as he wanted to and from. And my mom was quite ill. She'd had cancer and some strokes, and she wasn't doing very well. So during that time, she got really, really sick and they didn't think she was going to make it. So I decided to fly back to the States to see my mom, maybe for the last time. And his full name is Muhammad Yaqub Ali. So I'm married to Muhammad Ali, which is a cool name if you know, the boxer Muhammad Ali, but in today's world, it's a very common terrorist name. So he flew in to visit my mom. They stopped him in the Chicago airport, wanting secondary evidence because of his name, which is very typical. They took him to secondary questioning. They took away his wallet. They took away his shoes and were asking him questions. And in his wallet, he had a business card of a friend of ours here in Utah. And they called him, and he had told the immigration people he was coming here to visit my mom. And, that was the extent of his visit. And that's what it was. Well, this friend that they called said, "Oh, yes, we know him. He's marrying our friend's daughter." So immigration thought he was coming here to get married, even though that wasn't the case. And so they didn't deport him, but they wouldn't let him enter. And they sent him back to India the same day. He was here for 6 hours.
Oh, wow.
It was pretty traumatic.
Yeah.
Well, this is maybe where we see God's hand at first in our story, maybe in our meeting too. I'm not sure. But 2 days before this, I was talking to another friend whose husband's from another country. And she's like, "Oh, we got the best immigration lawyer. If you ever need his name, give me a call." And this was 2 days before this incident at the Chicago airport. So they sent him back to India and we were just kind of devastated. That was really hard. And it's really hard when something like that happens. They just said he was on the wrong visa. So they didn't deport him. They just said he was on the wrong visa. But in order for us to get married, we'd have to get married outside the country now for him to come back in.
Wow.
So I went as a teacher to spring break. And I went to India. I took a couple of weeks off work to go get married in India and then start the process. And let's just get this going. So I went to India and we found out that because we're different religions and because I'm a foreigner, I have to be in the country at least 30 days before we can apply to be married. So we couldn't get married then, but we got a lawyer. We hired a lawyer in India. We got all the paperwork ready. And I came back and I think, okay, we'll get married in the summer. About 2 weeks before I left to go to India for the summer, I was actually sitting in a church meeting and a thought just came to me, like, you should get married in Thailand. And I didn't think two things about it. Cause I'm like, I have never even thought about visiting Thailand. I know nothing about Thailand. Aside that I teach geography, right? I don't know anything about the immigration things or getting married there or anything like that. And it just wouldn't leave me alone. That thought just kept persisting. You should get married in Thailand. So I came home and I was speaking to my dad. I was talking to my dad. I said, "Dad, what do you know about Thailand?" He's like, "Let's look it up." So we got on the computer and looked it up and found out it was the easiest place for transcontinental couples to get married. So I kind of looked up what you had to do in order to get married in Thailand. And you have to get clearance from your embassies. And I had to have a letter written by my dad and a letter written by my county saying I had permission to marry. I got all that ready just in case, because I talked to Ali about it and he wasn't so sure. He's like, "We've already paid money to this lawyer. We already have stuff to get married, to get married in India." So we weren't sure the plan. Well, it just so happens that another friend that I got my master's degree with in the same group of friends was in the Peace Corps in Thailand with his wife. So I called him And I said, James, hey, Ollie and I, who he'd met when Ollie had visited Utah, are thinking about getting married in Thailand. He goes, I can arrange everything for you. James is a member of my same religion. And he's like, we can have a bishop, a clergy member marry you, and I'll arrange everything. Just come if you want to come. Let me know what you decide. So I go to India the 1st of June. We decided to see what would happen in India. And we went to meet with our lawyer, and the price about doubled, right? He'd never met me in person. And of course, in India, they think all Americans are rich and, have a lot of money. So the price just kept going. India is very corrupt. So in order to get anything done in courts and things like that, you have to pay people under the table. It was just getting really complicated. I said, let's just go to Thailand and see what happens. So we got tickets and hopped on a plane and went to Thailand, and James met us there. And the bishop, this clergy member who is going to marry us, is from Canada. He works for the Canadian consulate, and he was only in Thailand for 3 more days, and he was going back to Canada. So we arrived in Thailand and we got married the next day.
Wow.
James arranged it all. And it was just a religious ceremony to start with. And we just did it at this bishop's house. And so we had 6 people at our wedding. We had James and his wife, the bishop and his wife. On our flight to Thailand was one of Ollie's friends from Jaipur. And so he came. And then Ollie had met at the hotel we were staying at, a guy from Brazil, and invited him to our wedding. So that was our wedding party. So we got married, and the bishop and James had made a marriage certificate and signed it as witnesses. And the next day we knew we had to go get married again in a government marriage in Thailand. So we did the religious one more just to have a wedding ceremony, right? To have something to kind of remember. And then we knew we'd have to go into a court in Thailand to get married. So the first thing we did is we had to go to both embassies and get clearance. So I went to the American embassy, got clearance to marry, and then we went to the Indian embassy, and we were both scared to death to go to this Indian embassy because of all the corruption. And we're like, oh, great. What are they going to ask us? What's going to happen? And we took that marriage certificate, the religious certificate that they'd made for us with us. And if we wouldn't have had that, the Indian embassy wouldn't have given us permission to marry in Thailand. So things just kind of fell into place. It just seemed like it wasn't a coincidence that I was told to go to Thailand, and that it was kind of God's hand in our relationship leading us the way. And so we got permission to marry. We went to a court, we got married, and then we have to stay in Thailand for 2 to 3 weeks to get it government stamped with an English translation. So our marriage certificate's in Thai, but
Wow.
for immigration and everything, we had to get this government translation. So we spent the next 4 weeks in Thailand, enjoyed it for about half the cost of what it cost us to get married in India. And who knows if it would even have happened. So it just worked out really well. And it just seemed like it was meant to be. So after that 4 weeks, we go back to India, and I have about a month left to stay in India before I go back home to come back to work. And we file our immigration papers for him to be able to come to the United States. And I got really sick, which is very typical. In India, I get sick every year I go there. The food's different, the humidity and stuff. And so we went to the doctor. He's like, I think you have some intestinal issues, and I want you to get a ultrasound, because if they're really inflamed, it could cause a lot of problems. So I said, okay. And about the next day we went to get an ultrasound, and the technician, the doctor reading it, said, yeah, your intestines are really inflamed. And listen to this. And there was just this sound. I'm like, what is that? And they're like, that's your baby's heartbeat. I said, what? And so we found out we were having a honeymoon baby. So needless to say, I have to come back to the United States, and I'm here by myself. Ollie's in India. We filed for immigration with this awesome lawyer that we've been hooked up with right at the right time. And they say, okay, it will take 6 to 9 months for him to get here. And so I'm like, okay, well, I hope it's shorter than later, because I don't want to have this baby by myself. Well, it ended up taking 4 years.
What?
Yeah, it was not 6 to 9 months. It was a very long time. So, our first kid together, her name's Addie. She's going to be 13 in March. I had her by myself. I mean, I had friends and family around, but Ollie was actually in his jewelry shop in Nepal at that point because they moved for for tourist seasons, kind of around wherever it might be. So, in the summer that year, I took Addie. She was 3 months old to India for the first time to meet her dad.
Oh,
And her and I traveled back and forth to India for the next 2.5 years,
oh my gosh.
just waiting on immigration.
Why did it take that long?
I don't really know. Immigration became very backlogged after September 11th and the events of that, and things just take longer. And India is such a populated country, 1.3 billion people. A lot more people try to immigrate. So I'm sure there's a backlog as well. And there's several steps to immigration, right? You apply, and then it goes from like the federal government to the State Department, then to the embassies. So there's numerous steps, and it's super not cheap. So the first step, they thought the whole thing would take about 6 to 9 months, but it took the backlog in the National Visa Center took about 15 months. So it was at a processing time by then. And then, so we'd been married, let me think, about 2 years when he got a notification he was going to have his first interview at the embassy.
Wow.
And my mom passed away that summer.
Oh.
My dad decided, it was during Christmas, it was December, that Ollie had his first interview at the embassy. Now, he was married before, so we were applying for him and all four of his children to come
Wow.
to the United States. So it wasn't just one person. Him being married before, divorce isn't very common in India, so that was really unique. And at first, his ex-wife did not want us to bring the kids.
I was going to ask about that.
I felt really strongly we needed to apply for them whether we got them or not. Like it was something I felt like really driven that these kids, I loved Ollie, and our relationship's amazing and our marriage is amazing and whatever. But I felt that was one of the reasons I met him, is to bring these kids
Really?
to where they needed to be. At that time, she was like, "You'll never get my kids. I'd rather throw them in front of a train than let you have them." And the summer my mom passed away, I was in India. And I never went to India thinking my mom would pass away while I was gone. She actually died while I was in India.
She did.
The night before she died, my Addie was just laughing in her crib. I just had this funny feeling. I'm like, I think my mom's talking to her. And I just went back, I'm like, that's a silly thing. And Ollie was not feeling very good. So he was in the restroom and he came out and he goes, "She's dead asleep and laughing." I said, "I know." He goes, "I bet your mom's talking to her." I said, "That's what I thought too." And my dad called me the next day and said, "I don't think your mom's going to last too much longer." And I had tried to get a ticket to come home because she hadn't been doing well, like for a couple of weeks, and they were having a big strike in the airports and I couldn't get a ticket. Like there was very limited tickets. And so that next day, my dad called me. He goes, "I have a really strong feeling your mom was with you in India last night." And it was just this really kind of cool experience.
I love
for
that.
all of us. And the next day, she passed away, and I was really upset. And Ollie's ex-wife, her name is Rashida, she was taking the kids back to the village. And I was upset because I'm like, I'm leaving. My mom just died. I don't know where I'm going to see these cute kids again. There wasn't this great relationship between me and her, and she hated him, and it was just really confusing. And that day I'm saying goodbye to kids and I'm crying, and she's like, "Okay." She doesn't speak a lot of English, but she's like, "Okay, I'm not going to leave, but I want to spend the day with me." And before this, she wanted, I was not having nothing to do with her kids, nothing. So we went to the day of the park and stuff. Anyway, she stayed at our same guest house that night. And when she woke up in the morning, she goes, "I have something to say to you." And she told Ollie to translate for me. And she said, "Sorry, I've ever caused you trouble. I will never cause you trouble again. We are sisters, and I'm giving my children to you."
Wow.
And that was powerful for me. I don't know, but in my belief system, I believe my mom had a hand in helping change her heart. And so that was another part of our story. It's not really our love story, but it definitely is
That is a
part of our,
miracle.
I think, the miracles that exist with what's happened. And ever since then, her and I, we went back to India for the first time in 2019 and took our little kids to meet Ollie's family, and his brothers and sisters. And it's so nice that we have a good relationship. And she was wonderful to my kids. And it was, we spent some
Oh,
time together in India, and what a blessing that is for our children. And what a blessing that is for our family to have that kind of relationship rather than a bitter, angry,
yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah.
And I think she sees the benefit of having her kids have, what America has to offer in terms of education and learning English fluently and all those kinds of things. So
Yeah.
that's another cool miracle part of our story.
That is amazing. That is a miracle part. I love that.
So when we went to that first interview in December, my dad came with me to India and we all went to this interview and they said, okay, we'll let you know. And then nothing. They're just like, you just have to wait. You just have to wait. And I think because he was stopped at the Chicago airport, that probably had some things. They never gave him any documentation from that incident because they didn't deport him. So there's no like official paperwork. They just put a stamp with a code in his passport. So after a year of waiting, I decided to take a leave of absence from my job here and move to India and be with my husband and my friend, dear friend from high school. Her name's Gloria. She works for immigration and she did refugee work around the world, but she happened to be in Nepal and says, I'm going to stop and see you in India. So she came and saw us. She goes, you just need to go make an appointment as an American citizen. You can go make an appointment and see what's going on. And at this point, we reached out, but they just said, oh, it's still in processing. That's the only information we got. So we decided to go to Delhi, which is about a 5-hour drive, me and Addie and Ali. And he can't go in because he's not an American citizen. And I met with a person at the embassy. I said, we've been waiting on this now 2.5 years, almost 3, well, actually 3 years by this point. And what's the holdup? And they couldn't give me an answer. So they wanted documentation of his happened to Chicago airport. So I had to write an affidavit. Ollie had to write an affidavit, get him notarized. It was just lots of hoops to jump through, right? We go and submit that. Then they said, give us 2 weeks. So 2 weeks later, I get another notification from the embassy that says, we need documentation from the Chicago airport, the exact same letter. So we make another trip to Delhi. And I actually am there for like 4.5 hours sitting in the consulate, waiting for people to look at my case and see what's going on. And by this point, I'm pregnant with our second daughter. It's November. So I'm like 5 months pregnant with her, and I do not want to have this baby in India. And so the vice counselor, the very top, second guy in command of the embassy, comes out to speak to me and he goes, I really don't know why it's taken this long. Can you give me 2 weeks? And I said, well, I already did that. He goes, just give me 2 weeks and I will have an answer for you. I said, I need my husband in America and I can't have this baby in India. And he said, I know the feeling. My wife's pregnant. She doesn't want to give birth here either. So I said, okay, we'll give you 2 weeks. So 2 weeks later, we got another letter saying that his police profile from the city of the police clearance was expired and all their medical exams were expired. So we had to take all the kids and him, go back to Delhi, get medical exams. I submitted it. I said, now what? 2 weeks later, we got their green cards in the mail. So December 20th of 2011, we had 3 kids that didn't speak any English. Always my 3 stepkids. They were 12, 10, and 8. A 2-year-old and a baby on the way. And we arrived back in the United States. And some miracles happened there too, because in the immigration process, usually when you come into the United States, you get like a limited residency and then you have to jump through lots of hoops. But because we'd been married so long and it had taken us so long, they came in as automatic permanent residents.
Wow.
So that was really a nice thing. And we came here and we've been living life here in the United States ever since. It's been good. It's been challenging. My husband and I are different religions. And so that takes a lot of patience. Our kids learn both. We practice both. We do both. So I think it gives us our kids a unique perspective. We've been very blessed it just seems in hindsight that everything worked out just the way it should be. So that's kind of our story. Here we are.
That is amazing. So what religion is he?
He's Muslim.
He's Muslim. Okay. So is that because I know in India, a lot of them are Hindu. Is Muslim another like big practicing religion or the most common?
Yeah. So in India, 80% of the country is Hindu and about 10% are Muslim. And then the rest are Christian or other denominations of breakoffs of Hinduism or whatever. So it's the second largest religion in India.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would love to hear Ali's side of like, especially why he kept pursuing you. Like, that's fascinating that, you know, you're this American that, you know, is leaving. So I'd love to hear that perspective. What drew you to her? Because it sounds like you really pursued her and called her. And so tell us your side of the story.
My side of the story, she was going front of my shop and I find her very attractive. She is so cute walking, way of she walk. I like it. So in India, you know, you can go on a grab hand with the tourists and you can do anything. But here, if you touch somebody, you can get in trouble.
Right.
So I was going to grab her hand. I said, hey, you have to look my jewelry store. And then I said, you have a beautiful pendant. You know, she was wearing some necklace. She said, oh, thank you. And she keep walking in front of my shop. And I say, hey, you have to come and look. She said, okay, I'll come in the evening, not now. So they go in a beach and then they come in the evening, like around 5, 6 o'clock. And when they come, by chance, I was sitting over there outside from my shop. Then they come and look in my store. Then asking, hey, do you like something to drink, tea, coffee, some beer? And she said, I'm a Mormon. I say, what is this? Because I never had this before in my life. So they say, Mormon people don't drink tea and coffee. So I say, Mormon people drink water? She say, yes. So I give the water bottle and then they look around and then I give the one silver ring. I say, thank you for come and make my day. Is okay. And then I give them my business card. I say, what's your plan tonight? I say, why not you guys can come my home and we can cook some seafood and get a chance to know each other. And then she say, okay, give me your business card. So I give them my business card and there is my number and my partner number. So they're supposed to text me. They text my partner and they say, I'm sorry, we are not available to come, but we are so-and-so restaurant. If you want to come, you're welcome. So my partner, he forget to tell me. And next morning, I call her, hey, why don't come? And then she says the same thing. Why not you come? I said, where? She said, in a restaurant. And I said, I don't receive any tax. And then I call my partner and they say, oh, sorry, I forget to tell you that. I said, oh, thank you. And then we get a right number each other's and right contract. And then she said, I have to go back to America. And then she come back to America. And then I call her in every day, 2005 to 2006. That
and
time
what
was
made
very
you?
expensive.
That's
just
true.
because I find her so attractive. Yeah, just make her so attractive. And I find her so much loving person, you know. I used to call her slippery fish.
And I'm like, why do you, he'd call every day. He'd say, hey, goodbye, my slippery fish. And I'm like, what? That must be a term of endearment I've never heard before. And so one day I said, why are you calling me a slippery fish? And he goes, well,
I'm a fisherman. I'm the fisherman. So I have to wait for the fish, you know.
I'm a patient fisherman and you're a slippery fish.
Cute.
Yeah.
Did you ever think, because you lived so far away for both of you, that you would actually get married, get together, change your whole life for each other, really?
I never think like that, but I feel the strong about my love. I think it can be happen. And I pray and then it'll be happen, you know, because I read somewhere in a book that if you want something true love, you have to have patient, because love is not easy. You have to suffer a lot of things, you know. You have to go through many things. So then I was keep patient. And whenever I call her, I always say like this, you are a slippery fish, you know, because I try to be caged to you. Always you go very far. And then finally she come back after 6 months. And then she said, if you're going to get married, you have to come to America and get the permission from my parents. And then I come here and get the permission from his dad, stay 5 months here, have a wonderful time and meet all his family really loving me and welcoming, and everybody treats me like they know me from the long time. And then I go back home and try to solve my business over there, take some time. Then I try to come back, visit her, but it's not can be happen. Then I stuck in India, and then it's take like 4 years. 4 years, and in meantime, Amy have to come and go, come and go.
How is it for you to have it be so difficult to be so far away and you couldn't be there with her? Was that hard for you, or were you just working and fine?
It was really hard because my wife is there, my kid is there, and when I'm waiting for the embassy, it take long time, and I'm not sure it can be happen or not, So it's make me always worried, I don't know what can be happen. I was always thinking, oh, maybe if something not happen, then I never get a chance to see my daughter again. Maybe if she can come back, I can see, but I don't know when she can come back,
Yeah.
So all like this, I just worried about it. But rest thing, I just pray and think of positive, I never think negative. Always I think positive. It can be happen. It takes some time, but whatever it take time for some reason behind.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing that we learned through it, waiting all this time, was to kind of just surrender to what was going to be. So my prayers changed kind of during that time of just let me feel peace. Because it was always this constant worry for both of us. That's all it was what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And I kind of just finally said, okay, what will be, but let me have some just peace. And it wasn't like I never got anxious, but then I'd have just these moments of calmness. And we were both busy. I had to be busy teaching, and Ollie, was working, and he still had the kids, the other kids over there. And so life went on, but it was just, we were in this for 4 years in this weird space because nothing was settled.
Yeah. That's hard to be in that for so long and to feel like things aren't progressing and moving forward.
Yeah.
So I love that you switched your prayer to just let me feel peace with this. That's yeah.
And then once I surrendered that, it led us both, I think Ollie did kind of the same thing, and we just kind of, what will be, and it's meant to be. And whatever it will be, it's for our good. Was a great lesson for me. Maybe that's why we had to go through it, because it changed the way I deal with challenges from then on. I have a lot different outlook on them. I have a lot different way to approach it. I don't get so upset about things anymore. It's more, okay, something's happened, let's just ride it out, and see what will happen. It must be for our good. I think that's helped shaped who we are today and shaped how we handle challenges thrown our way.
That's a powerful life lesson. And it sounds like you really maybe you did need to learn that, and it maybe took that long to learn it, but powerful lesson to learn.
Yeah. And maybe there's no other way,
Right, exactly.
I don't know. For me as a person, I like to be in control all the time. I want to know what's happening, when it's happening, how it's going to happen. And I don't like surprises or changes. I think this has allowed me to see, it's not always my way, my plan.
I love that. Surrendering it to God's will. And I love that.
Saying, because we both have a lot of passion, we just be patient, because we say we have nothing in our hand now. Whatever is happened. That's it. She lives here by herself, and everybody try to tell something, oh, it cannot work. Oh, why not you can find someone here, this and that. And many things, and we are two different religions, and people always say, oh, he can be beat. They make their own story, and they can just pretending.
It was really funny. I think there's a real misconception about Muslims in today's world. So I had a lot of people say to me, like, have you seen the movie Not Without My Daughter? Which is friends and things. I had people ask me if I'd have to wear burqa, which is the black, covering from head to foot once we married. I had several people ask me if I thought he was going to beat me. I said, I'll probably beat him before he beats me. So I think we're pretty good, but so it was very interesting. And I think it was that on both sides, people here, I think it was not out of meanness. I think they were just concerned for me and, out of the unknown.
Right.
And I think the same thing is true in Ali. What are you going to do in America? Are they going to accept you there? You know, lots of things on both sides that were kind of lots of challenges that way too.
Totally. I can totally see that,
Yeah.
which really shows me how obviously there was something bigger that was holding you two together.
Yeah.
And that was bringing you two together. Like there is something bigger than you
Yeah.
that was a part of this.
I think it's very interesting because I think in my religion, you're kind of discouraged from marrying outside of it. It's really important to find somebody who holds the same values as you do. And I just had a really strong feeling and a very strong witness that this was what I was supposed to do. And it wasn't just one thing, it was several times. And same's true for Ali. It's not easier to marry somebody outside your religion, outside of your country, change your whole life for without a really strong conviction more than just love that it was meant to be, and it was the will of God to do this. And you know, I hold a lot of value in my parents' opinion. As he got to know my family, my dad says, I've never had a feeling that this was something you should not do. And that was another strong witness for me, because I think you were meant for this. And why that is, I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for us, but I know that everything will be okay, because I do believe it was what I was supposed to do. So I hold on to that anytime things are tough. So for me, that's enough to know that that's what I was supposed to do, that all the rest will work out, and it will work out for our family and for our good.
I love that. And I totally believe in things like that conviction of knowing you're with the right person on the right path can get you through the hard things. And it is bigger than love, because it's a deeper knowing, a spiritual knowing that really can get you through that. I love that.
And this is like a destiny, you know, the Heavenly
Yes.
Father, he's already created all this thing, you know. So when he wanted to work, everything can become easy, you know.
Right. Everything is possible with God, right?
Yeah, everything is.
Wow, that's it.
Well, I love your story. Thank you so much for sharing it. Anything else that
You're
we
welcome.
forgot to say or you want to say before we end?
I'm so glad that I'm in America now with my family, with my kids. Together we have a beautiful 3 kids, and now we have 6 kids here, and everyone is happy. And every day I tell her, and you are the best thing happening in my life.
I love that.
This is actually every day I say to her, this is the best thing happened. And because what we go through, we had a hard time together, you know.
Well, I'm grateful that it all worked out and that you've
Yeah.
been able to come and bring your 3 children and have 3 more children. Like, it's a beautiful life, it sounds like, that you've
Yeah.
created and are enjoying. So
And beautiful life and beautiful wife, so it's good.
you're set.
I'm set.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both so much. I have loved having you on and hearing your story.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having us.
Thank you for
We
having us.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to this miracle story. Please subscribe to my channel if you liked it. You can also find me on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. And remember to notice and celebrate miracles everywhere, because the more miracles we notice, the more miracles happen.